right, so we're here with Quinton Williams. He is has the pleasure of being the first guest on our podcast that we still don't have a name yet. By the way, I haven't come up with a name for it. I guess my plan at this point is just to let it naturally flow, and we'll come up with a name as we go. But I'm happy to have Quinton on it. He is a co-pastor at Life Point Church. I've had the pleasure of growing up around Quinton since before you left for Oregon, and we'll talk a little bit about that.
How old are you?
When Life Point started, I was 6.
Wow. So yeah, been around you since you were 6. That's crazy.
Yeah. And I felt like you were constantly watching me grow up in a way, and so there's been some moments throughout that there's a reason you're on this podcast and a reason you were the first one that I invited on. And so for those of you that don't know, Quinton does a lot with missions. So before your title was co-pastor at Life Point, it was what, director of missions or pastor of missions? What?
Director of missions. It was funny when we first started Life Point, we tried to do these cool hip things. So I think I was like life pastor, and Neil was point pastor since we were Life Point. Like life, I don't know. It was very yeah.
Try to use the Life Point name in it, but
yeah, we're just trying to be a lot cooler than we were.
Well, what so how long was it from when you started with Life Point to when you moved to Oregon? What was that time period? What year was it that you moved to Oregon?
So that was in 2011 that we moved to Oregon. 5 years into Life Point.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was a tough decision. I mean, I don't think I've like really talked publicly about that very much. You know, the front-facing story I told was true to why we left, but it wasn't really the whole story in a lot of ways. There was a lot of internal conflict going on inside of me at the time, and even trying to figure out who I was, and there's a lot of pride. It's probably like when I left, it's probably the time me and honestly, your dad, Matt, were like butting heads more than we'd ever had.
I can't imagine anybody butting heads with Matt Brooks. I can't imagine that at all.
But part of me leaving was making sure I got away before I did something stupid. And what I mean is like make an emotional decision. And at the same time, I really felt like God wanted me to plant other churches. I feel like Eugene, Oregon was this place. I mean, just on a map, when you look at the United States, Eugene was one of the least churched areas in the United States. And so it made sense. There was a group of young folks who were wanting to live out some kind of adventure that way, that wanted to go with me and Audrey to plant those churches. So there's a lot of stuff, but part of it too was me trying to get away and figure out like who I was in a lot of ways. You know, it's weird when you're raised in any kind of environment that's been the same environment for so long that you think you know who you are. But being able to go to a different environment completely helped me really solidify a lot of the things I thought I knew about myself, and potentially, you know, learn some new things about myself I didn't know, which was really good, you know.
So you said when you grew up in the same place, you went to Albertville High School. You were from Albertville, grew up in Albertville.
Yeah, well,
pretty
Alder
much.
Springs. I mean,
okay, well,
it's Albertville.
It's Albertville.
Yeah.
And then left to go to Oregon. You weren't anywhere between you Albertville all the way up. Started Life Point, and then 5 years after that, moved to Oregon. So how do you go through? What's the process in which you pick Eugene, Oregon, out of all the places you decide to go? I mean, you said it's one of the least church areas. Is that something you looked up initially just by least church, or is there a draw that you had to Oregon and specifically Eugene that led to that decision?
I will say Neil McKinney had went to Oregon. There was a guy we knew named Brad Duncan who played with Rebecca St. James. She was a contemporary Christian artist back in the day. He was the guitarist for them, and they had played at a bunch of Christian camps that I went to and worked with, and God, just through some random friends, we met him. He was going to Oregon. I connected him with Neil. Neil ended up going to Oregon with him to plant churches back, and he was in Oregon because that was his hometown. And so there was a little bit of a draw to there because Neil was in Oregon, But honestly, I remember sitting in my office, and I've had every office at the church, but it was the middle office that I had at the time, and I had a map that was up on the wall, and I just remember seeing Eugene and thinking, like, I knew nothing about Eugene, but just thinking, that's a long ways away, and that seems like an adventure. And I'll tell you, honestly, the other thing that was happening in my heart was I feel like Life Point had been so successful. Like those first few years, we grew so fast. People asked us to come speak at conferences about how to plant churches. There was a lot of just fanfare made over what was happening with us, and a lot of pride. But I really wanted to do something that I felt like I had a really, really high chance of failing at.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to Oregon, went to Eugene, me, my wife moved with my oldest daughter, Desi, I guess she was about 5 at the time. My middle daughter was 4 months old, and I moved with, I think, $3,500 and no job.
Gosh. That's, I can't even imagine. And that's not that long ago either. I mean, it's not like $3,500, back in the 60s and 70s. I can't imagine.
It was $3,500, no job, and Holly was Kane at the time, went with us. Alec, who she ended up marrying, they ended up getting married. A guy named Derek and a guy named Lewis. So 3 single guys, a single girl, me, my 2 kids, and $3,500. We moved to Eugene, Oregon. But there's something great. Like I think like there's I really think there's something inside of all of us that longs to do something that we don't think we can do. Like that's
the challenge of that.
Yes. And even like spiritually, where you're having to say, I don't think this is going to happen unless God shows up in the midst of this. Like I don't think this is going to make sense unless something happens that is beyond my own personal ability to make it happen. And when you get to experience things like that, it's exhilarating, to be a part of that. But for the most part, I feel like our culture these days, we don't put ourselves in those situations. We want to make sure if we take any kind of risk, we've already like got 17 backup plans of what to do if it fails,
So what was your primary plan? I mean, you go up there, obviously you had to have some sort of plan as to like, what did you do when you get up there? What was your job? How'd you make a living? What was your next step as soon as you arrived?
Yeah. So Holly had gotten a job. She actually had a master's in counseling. And so she had gotten a job at a place called Jasper Mountain. And it was I don't know, it's not a rehab facility, but it was like a home for kids, not quite teenagers, really from ages 7 to 12, who had been through the worst of situations or what would be considered the most high risk, or some kids who had had the worst behavior. It was like a group home for them. And so I got on as a treatment technician there and just worked a normal shift. It was pretty high stress job. Not the job I wanted, but when you move somewhere, you just get whatever job you can get. My degree's in psychology made sense. I worked there. Holly got me that job. We started just kind of meeting people. I went to a bar called Hop Valley. It was like a bar restaurant, brewery restaurant, Hop Valley, because Neil had met a pastor and his brother was the manager of Hop Valley. And so we went and started meeting with Hop Valley with a guy named Joel, awesome guy. Man, he's still a great guy. He's living in Portland now. But Joel, we started doing like a Bible study in this brewery and started building a relationship with Joel and talking with Joel. And one day he's like, hey, you need to meet this guy named Ken Harvey. Ken he said he runs a homeless ministry for teenagers, and I think it'd be really cool if you met with him. That'd be something good for us to get involved in if you're trying to do some ministry here in Oregon, in Eugene. I said, great. And at the same time, we were helping a guy plant a church in Springfield at the time, which is right beside Eugene. So we set up a meet with Ken Harvey. Awesome, dude. Like, I wish you could meet Ken Harvey. One of the best human beings I ever met. He literally just ministered to homeless students. He created a drop-in space for them, shared the gospel with them, just let them clean clothes. And it was crazy. I mean, here in Albertville, Alabama, you don't see like homeless teenagers everywhere. No. But in Eugene, Oregon, that was a fairly common thing to see. Riding the rails. It's just a lot of that going on. So I'm talking with him, and we're just talking about what he does, and I'm talking who I am and where I've came from, and he's like, he wants to offer me a job. Like, hey, I really need to hire a director. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that sounds interesting. I said, and this is just me being honest. I said, but Ken, like, I'm gonna be honest, man, does it have insurance? Because I mean, I've got my family here. I'm trying to figure out a job that I can take care of my family and be here and plant a church. And he goes, no, he goes, but last week, the new director of the Eugene mission, he came and spoke at our church and said that he's trying to hire a new chaplain. And he wants the chaplain to have a social service background, which I've worked in DHR. I have a psychology social service background. He wants them to, of course, be pastoral, which I'd pastored Life Point for 5 years. And he wants them to have a background in recovery, preferably CR, which, again, we had started Life Point with sober recovery. So I was like, well, Ken, thank you for offering me that job. And it was a full benefit. It's like a full-time salary benefit job. And so he sets me up with meeting with Jack Tripp, who's the new director, and he hired me. And
did you tell him that you have to change the title from chaplain to life director or point director?
Yeah, right.
The word chaplain doesn't work for you very well.
It was weird. The job did morph. It morphed into, when it ended, I was the director of social services for the Eugene mission, which oversaw the spiritual end of things, but also a lot more than that. We really changed the shape of that mission. It's probably, you look back, I don't know if you look back yet. You get to my age and older, I'm sure, you look back and you say, what are the things I did that really made a significant impact? And I think my work at the Eugene mission, like to this day, still makes a significant impact. We ended up starting a recovery program there called the Life Change Program. And to this day, every 6 months, I get newsletters of people graduating that program that were homeless, addicted, and now they're working jobs, getting housing. So it's living past me. And I think that feels good, to be able to do something that lives past you having to have your hands on it. Mm-hmm. I don't know I've done a ton of that in my life. There's been a few things where I've been able to get something going and then leave it, and it just keep cruising right on. Other things, I mean, the 2 churches I planted, one of them may be still around, but the church I loved that I planted in Eugene, it was called The Beautiful Mess. I mean, it's not there anymore. That didn't survive my absence. But what happened to Eugene Mission did, and that was really cool to watch that happen. That's
cool. So when you go make that kind of impact, when you go do something that you felt led to do, partially, the full story is that you, wanted to get out and go do something really challenging. What was it that called you back home after that? I mean, how do you leave that? How do you leave making such an impact with the homeless ministry that you go, well, I'm now going to go back to good old Albertville, Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that's real practical. So when we took over the Eugene mission, it was in rough shape. Jack was there 3 months before he hired me, and he was a CEO of 2 Fortune 500 companies. He had recently came to know Jesus by watching Charles Stanley on TV, and decided that he wanted to do something that wasn't business world, that he wanted to do something to give back. He was a millionaire, house in the Hamptons, all that, And so you have this, and he was from Boston. This Boston guy hires this guy from Alabama in Eugene, Oregon. I mean, it's just the weirdest thing. But I think for me, it was a school. It was like going to school for 4 years with him, and from a business mindset, how to handle certain situations. And then for him, being able to be with me, I mean, I've been raised in church my whole life. And so it was like I was his chaplain in a lot of ways. Like there was a lot of spiritual growth that happened, questions he would ask me, and conversations we would have. And so it was really cool. I think we both benefited from it. And at the same time, the mission when we got there, was very corrupt. People who were homeless had been living there for 20 years, became leaders in it, charging people for beds, making people give them drugs. There was a lot of extortion. There was drug trafficking that was happening through that whole corridor, and the mission was a hub of it. There was even sex trafficking that was taking place. And so for about 2 years, we went to really battle with all that. And then the other 2 years, once we kind of won that battle, it was establishing the new Life Change program and reestablishing the Eugene mission as it is now. But what happened in that time is we had a lot of enemies. So a lot of death threats.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah. There was
From from people who were who benefited from the ministry, or people from the organization that you kind of ran out and the corruptness.
Yeah, it was the underbelly of the homeless organization, like drug runners and stuff. I mean, there's like people who were ex-military they would say, don't go to the mission on this day. We're going to kill Jack and Q on these days.
Really?
Like they would tell people, and then it'd get back to us. And
so what do you, I mean, in that moment, what do you do? Like somebody says you get a letter or there's some death threat that you get back. Do you just not go that day? And
no, you just go.
You just go anyway?
Yeah, it's weird because I read a lot. I love to read. Somebody told me a long time ago that leaders are readers, and I believe that. I really love to read any kind of thing. I read comic books to like big nonfiction books. I read everything. And so I was reading about Wyatt Earp. I don't know if you've ever read much about Wyatt Earp.
I haven't. No.
Historically, Wyatt Earp, just happened to be reading this while this was going on. And he talks about, if people that knew Wyatt Earp will talk about how Wyatt Earp did not like getting into a gunfight. He hated it. Like, which is funny when you watch Tombstone or these movies where he's just like, just
right.
But it gave him so much anxiety. So what he decided to do is he decided what the tactic he called was like buffalo people. Like
I've heard you talk about this.
Yeah.
I was hoping we would get to this because this is where you told me about this. It's the first time I heard this term.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love this.
So you just act like you're the baddest guy. Like you love gunfights. And if you want to fight me, we're going to go and I'll shoot you dead in the street right now. I mean, that's what Wyatt Earp would do. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people would just cower down and not get into a fight. But there was something I took away from that with dealing with a lot of this, evil is that I just buffaloed them. I mean, they would say, going to kill you. Like I had a guy hold a Bowie knife one time. I'll never forget this. He asked me to come into a room about this size. It's like a laundry room at the mission. He asked me to come in there, and he pulled out a Bowie knife. And he looks me dead in the eyes, and he said, "Have you ever seen your own blood in the moonlight?" That was his question to me.
Out of all the things he could have said that might have been intimidating, I'm not sure. Not that that's not, but I'm not sure that that's the words I would have picked. But
in my mind, I'm trying to buffalo him. But also in my mind, I'm going, if you cut me open right now, we're in a laundry room. There is no moonlight in here. Like, what are you talking about? And I'm pretty sure it was day. I worked daytime hours. I worked 8 to 5. 9 to 5.
He was gonna save it for later,
I guess. And then guys told me that when they saw me downtown, they were gonna jump me. And there was a season where I carried brass knuckles in both my front pockets anywhere I went. So just decided that was easier than me than shooting somebody.
How long did this go on? So you getting these death threats, and then you feel unsafe everywhere you're going. How long does that go on?
It went on a while, and it was hard because I had to turn my emotions off. That's the thing about buffaloing people. You have to turn your emotions off. Mm-hmm. And I remember watching Desi at gymnastics one day and her doing some trick on some uneven bars or something and being, Daddy, aren't you excited? Look what I did. And I'm like, yeah, babe, good job. And inside I'm like, I'm feeling no emotions right now. Like really? I learned to turn them off. And that was an issue for me with my family. But so all that accumulates. I mean, I worked with the FBI a couple times. It was weird. You get a phone call and go, is this Quinton Williams? Yeah, this is the FBI. Like, just weird stuff. Gosh. There was, because that was a sex trafficking ring where they were bringing people through a women's center, and then they were taking them to this massage parlor, like, right downtown. So, like, they were trying to track people down with us. But at some point, some guys set me up and tried to get me put in jail, and didn't do it that day, but did succeed a year later. And
a year later.
Yeah. So with the Beautiful Mess, we would do these we do these basketball tournaments under the bridges. There was kind of like you see in the movies, these basketball courts that exist under bridges. Like those are real.
Yep.
That we had them there in Eugene. And we do cookouts and do these basketball tournaments, give prizes to the winners. Again, because there's homeless students and guys, and they'd all just come around from the low-income neighborhoods. So I'm there one day, and this guy I'd not met before. He was young. He probably was in his early 20s. Said, "Hey, can you take me to my camp? I left one of my basketballs there. I want to bring it to play." It was early. We were cooking hot dogs. I said, "Sure." So just him and I get in my Jeep Cherokee, and we start going. And we go to a stop sign, and we go to pull across, and a guy like steps and gets in front of my Jeep, and slam on the brakes, and he slams his hands on the hood, and this just starts cussing me out like, I'm like, "Hey, dude, okay, sorry." I mean, didn't hit him, nothing, and he just walks on off. Well, I didn't think anything about it. Just I kept going. So then a year later, I get a letter from the DMV of Oregon saying that my driving license has been suspended. Long story short, as I tracked that down, those guys that day had apparently made a report. They had multiple witnesses that said I yelled at this guy, ran him down, ran over him, and then drove off laughing. So I think the whole thing, I didn't ever go back and talk to these folks, and they never came back either. Like homeless people are so transient, so sometimes you'll never see them. But they never came back either and said anything. But I think the whole thing was just a setup to try to get rid of me because of what I was doing at the mission. But going to jail was kind of this. So I go there on a Friday to try to clear everything up. By the way, that's one thing. If you're listening to this, you want to take one thing away. Never go to the jail on a Friday afternoon. If the police are telling you they want you to come in the jail and talk to you about something, go on a Monday, okay?
Because either way, you got to stay the whole weekend if you go on Friday, right?
Yeah, and if it's important enough for you, you want me to be in your jail all weekend, you can come to my house and get me. That's how I feel about it. But I drove there myself, and end up getting arrested that night for 2 felonies. Assault with a deadly weapon and felony hit and run. And so go to jail over the weekend. I'm there for the weekend.
Now, to be clear, there weren't multiple witnesses when it actually happened that you know of, right? I mean, this is presumably people that have gotten together and tried to coordinate this scheme to get you kicked out of to end your term with the ministry, right?
Yeah. I mean, so after I'm arrested, they can't find any witnesses. They can't reconnect with any of those people who said that happened. None of it's was anything substantial at that point. But, I mean, I'm not mad. I mean, it was hard at the time. Going to jail is a hard thing if you've never been to jail. Like, I was just there for a weekend. It was plenty for me. But I almost think everybody should have to go to jail for a weekend. It's an interesting experience.
Just rite of passage. When you turn 18, just go spend a weekend in jail.
And for me, like with the 2 felonies, it was a real introspective deal. I was put in a maximum security lockup because I was a violent offender. So that was kind of good. I had my own cell. It was like a little room with a metal bed and a metal toilet. It was also kind of weird because everybody else on that whole hallway is violent offenders,
Yeah.
And it was all that was very interesting. But when I finally they just released me Monday, I never even saw a courtroom, never saw an arraignment or anything. It was it was a very odd deal, almost like, oh, we made a mistake.
Yeah,
we're gonna let you out.
That's what that sounds like.
Yeah, but it kind of became clear to me after that the mission had changed. Like it wasn't going to go back to. We got rid of all the drugs. We got rid of all the stuff that's bad. We brought new volunteers in. We'd hired new staff. Everything was new. We'd started this new program. It was running fabulous, but I was still a target. Like I was. Once I was gone, then there was no bad guy anymore. The mission wasn't going to go back. That ball had already, it was already rolling down the hill. So it was like, man, I need to get out here. And part of it too is because some of the guys started coming close to my house. They knew where I lived, and a couple of the guys that were in the program that were good guys got sideways and connected with some of the bad guys, and they knew where I lived. They'd been to my house, and so my daughters were getting older. I didn't really worry so much about me, but I didn't want anything to happen to one of them.
Right.
So it was kind of like, you know what? I just need to probably head back toward Alabama. I didn't know if I was going to come back to Life Point. Actually called your dad and just was like, hey, I'm coming back south somewhere. If you want me there or have a spot for me, we can talk about that. And then that's kind of how it led us back this way.
Well, and I'm glad. I know a lot of people are glad you're back. I want to talk about obviously I was really young whenever you did move to Oregon. So let's see, I was 6. It was 5 years after that. So I was 11 when you moved to Oregon. And so maybe maybe looking back on it, that affects my view of it. But at least to me, it seems like that when you came back, you brought a entirely different perspective and almost this, not that you weren't driven in the beginning, because you definitely were, but almost this different form of drive where I felt like in the beginning, it was kind of like you and Dad were kind of two heads of the same beast, and y'all are both very similar. But when you come back, you had this entirely different perspective where now almost you contrast each other in a lot of good ways. And so with that, you got involved with local missions, with the mission trips that the church does. It seemed like there was this new energy that come back that was like, thank goodness we have Q back, because now it feels like Life Point can live and breathe again. And it seems like, I'm sure Dad would hate me saying this, but it genuinely felt like that the time you were gone, we were headed towards a direction of let's look internally to what Life Point is and who we are, and what we can do, how we can make things better for us as far as experience for the people who attend. And I think there's a place and a time for that within church. But when you come back, it was like, no, forget about what's going on within this. Like, yes, we still want to do things well for the people who attend, because you never know when somebody who's there for the first time shows up. But it was almost like the priority had shifted towards, what are we going to do for people who don't attend here and who don't come here on a Sunday? Those people who are too scared to come here on a Sunday. And y'all started with that premise, but it felt like there was this new energy and new perspective behind it from you being over there.
Yeah, it's, I think anytime you're church planning and you're starting with nothing, it pushes you toward that. So being in Eugene in such an anti-church culture, it really pushed us to think outside the box in a lot of things we did. So Bill, I'll know, it's crazy. Some of the stories, I should write a book from all the stuff that happened. The mission would be its own book, but then the church planning had its really interesting. I had to, there was this guy and this girl who were, they were snorting cocaine in the bathroom, and they didn't understand why. When I found them snorting cocaine in the bathroom, why I would be upset that they were snorting cocaine in the bathroom of the church. They're like, well, this is supposed to be a church. This is supposed to be a safe place where we can, snort cocaine safely. And they were completely sincere about it. And
well, I guess if that's what you hear, if you hear that you go to the church because it's safe there, and that's your reality of your life, I guess that somewhat kind of makes sense if you have no experience with church.
Yes, and so it was, but it always pushed us to be very missional, very if we will serve our community, if we will serve the community around us. And really just we were trying to create moments for us to intersect with people who didn't know Jesus. And if we could create those moments of intersection and we could show them the love of Christ in a very genuine way, not hey, come to church with us Sunday, but just where they see us loving them in a very genuine way. And sometimes that was like sitting down on a bench with a person. That's a very genuine way to show love. Just, hey, can I sit here? Yeah. Okay, cool. You doing all right? Just very genuine moments trying to show God's love. Then we felt like we could make an impact on that community, and we did. And so bringing it back, that was part of it. I told Audrey, I remember when we came back, I said something to her, and I don't think I'm done with it yet. I still think I have. Honestly, I think I laugh because I remember I'm about to say something that's so not me. But I still think I have about 7 years left in this, and I don't usually put time frames on myself. I've been back 9, which is crazy to think about.
That is crazy. It doesn't feel like anywhere near that long at all.
So I think I have about 7 left. And the reason I laughed at is there's one time your dad said, this is before I left, I think, I can't remember when he said this, but sometime at one of our anniversaries he said, I feel like I'm going to commit for 10 years. And he before he told this to the whole church, he came to me and said, hey, I think I'm going to commit for 10 years. Can you commit for 10 years? And I said, I don't think I can commit for 10 days. That's what I told your dad. So I was like, I'm not doing that. But, I do.
And anybody that knows you knows that that's the truth.
Yeah.
That there's nothing that you commit to for longer than 10 days. It's just take it the next day.
Absolutely is. But I told Audrey when we came back, I said, I want to change the culture of church around here. There was something that was dynamic about Eugene and the fact that there was so few churches that we did not worry about all the stuff the Southern churches worry about. All the chest bumping, number counting, celebrity building. There was none of that because we were all vastly outnumbered. We were on mission. We weren't trying to make everybody think our church was the best church. It was ridiculous. We were trying to just reach all these people who didn't know Jesus, that really were desperate for some kind of hope. And so I desire to change church culture here. A lot of people don't know this. The first thing I did when I came back is I went to some of the major churches in the area and apologized for my arrogance the first 5 years of Life Point, and told them that I just did not want this to be like a Life Point is the best church thing. I wanted this to be, I wanted to be here to try to change the community so that they'd see Jesus. And if that meant any way working with them, I'm for it,
So why do you think, and I'll tell you my take on this, I'll ask you the question first, but why do you think that it is so popular and prevalent around here and not just around here, but I would say in the Bible Belt in general, for the chest bumping and the numbers counting and trying to make it this big thing? I mean, it almost seems like that in the Bible Belt, it is so common. First of all, it's something Dad has said, around here you can play hopscotch across the steeples. There's a church on every street corner, and it's almost like with quantity comes the churches that do well and do have numbers that show up. It's almost like human nature creeps in, and it's like it feels a lot like you see in business, almost like this competition and this. Yeah. You want to be the best. If there's 10 churches in your area, you at least want to be in that top 3 of attendance. And it's like, where do you think that comes from? Is that just human nature, or is that something to do culturally here within just being in the Bible Belt and so many churches around here?
I mean, yeah, human nature, I'm sure, plays into it. But I mean, when we say human nature, we're really saying our own depravity. I mean, our own mistake making, our own kingdom building. I mean, that's what's beautiful about the humanity is we're creators, right? Mm-hmm. So we want to take pride in the things we create. The issue is that pastors a lot of times think they create churches. It's what I thought the first few years of Life Point.
That's good. Mm-hmm.
And you don't. The thing I've had to learn is I'm a pastor at Life Point, but I didn't start. It's hard. I don't say I didn't start Life Point, but really I didn't create Life Point. Mm-hmm. It's something God created. And so remembering that's a really big deal. I would challenge even that potentially God does that with businesses as well. Mm-hmm. That God creates these things to be these vehicles in which we can, again, connect and cross with culture so that they can see the love of Christ. And we think we're the artist, and we get and we want everybody to think my picture's beautiful. My art's beautiful. Make much of my art. And we get lost in that, and that's why I think it becomes competitive. It's not that we don't think other people's stuff's good too,
right? No, you ask anybody, and that's the case. But you just want to, for whatever reason, it just seems like whenever there's competition in anything, it's like the attention turns, instead of it being something that's about God's movement or God's working in this place or whatever. It becomes, look what I have done. And especially in the church field, you'll see it where it's this backhanded thing too, where it's like, look what God used me for,
Mhm.
and it's like, there's still some pride in that statement right there. And then on the worst end of it, when it gets real competitive too, I mean, you'll have not just pride in what I've done, but why do you go to church there?
Yeah.
Like, why is that where you go? Have you
Yeah.
seen what they're doing? Have you seen what we're doing compared to that? And those conversations may not happen from the pulpit, but those are conversations that are happening in somebody's house over dinner, or within the church clergy or staff, and I just, it's hard for me to, I wrestle with that a lot, and I'm guilty of it. I mean, there's times where I'm like, why is that church doing X, Y, and Z? And then it's like, well, because they're an organization filled with people who like to attend there, and that's God's movement. There are people attending there because God is present in that room, but it's just it's hard for me to wrestle with that.
Yeah, it's hard not to take things personal when people have been around for a long time. That's the ones that are hardest, is when someone's been with you for a while and then you find out. I found out recently somebody was going to another church, and it's hard not to think like, man, did I not do enough? Could I have done something different? Should we have done something different? Should I have reached out in some way? And I really, like, there's moments in my past where I've let that eat me up inside as well, And again, I think you should always self-reflect and check yourself in the mirror. Make sure you're doing things the way that's the best way that represents Christ, and the best way that leads your organization well. But at the same time, like, I learned this a long time ago. Like, I'm not going to please everybody, and I'm not going to try to please everybody. I'm going to try to please Jesus. I'm going to try to do the things I know God's called me to do, and I'm going to let everything else kind of fall where it may. And in that, there's been people who a lot of times don't like me or don't think I act very pastorally. Or I've had very
You don't, by the way. You don't act very pastorally. The word pastorally has never been something that crossed my mind when I think of Quinton Williams. But there's a certain appreciation for that. I think actually that is a statement that personifies you in a way that I know several people from Albertville High School. I was shopping. Taylor needed a dress for some event we were going to the other day, and she was at work, couldn't get off. So I had to go find some dress. No idea what I'm doing. Dress shopping is not in my that is not my forte. And so I'm in this store, and there's this girl at the counter, and I'm like, hey, is there any way you can help me? I need a dress. This is what the event's for. No clue what color we need. Just help me find something. And that's what it was. It was the Lippies. It was the Life Point Lippies. It was the awards for the volunteers. And so that's how it came up. I mentioned, she said, what's the event for? And I said, it's at church. So it's not like, when I say, red carpet attire, it's not like we have to be super strict on that. It's for a church thing. So we got a little bit of wiggle room on attire. And she said, oh, what church do you go to? And I said, Life Point. And she was like, no way. Coach Q goes there, and ended up being one of your flag football girls. And we just got to talking about you. And one of the things that she appreciated was like, yeah, he's not the typical preacher. I don't see him as the typical preacher. He's really cool. He's a really cool guy.
Well, I'm just trying to be me. And I think that's the thing, is that for a lot of times I thought, even at the beginning of Life Point, like, I felt like I had to live up to some kind of persona, to lead in a certain way. And I'm not saying we shouldn't try to be holy. I think that's something that we should strive for. But I don't think I should be trying to be the holy that you think I should be. I think I should be the holy that God wants me to be. And so I don't, like, there's things, I don't know. I guess I'm going to probably say too much today. But, like, I went and worked at Papa Doobie's. And there's some families that are now at our church because of the time I spent in Papa Doobie's. It's a weird thing. Everything happens in weird ways, right? The Papa Doobie story is a very weird story. I know Papa Doobie's got a lot of grief recently on social media. But I was playing basketball with a group of guys. One of them happened to be Tyler. He's one of the brothers at Papa Doobie's. I'm playing one day, and I dislocate my ankle. Complete dislocation. I crawled to the car, and Jake Davis. I crawled to Jake Davis. He's the assistant principal at AIS now. I crawled to his car. I pass out in the passenger seat from the pain, and I remember people slapping me, going, "He's going into shock. He's going into shock." Like, no, I'm good. I just passed out. I'll never forget. Jake's like, "Hey, do you want me to take you to Boaz?" I'm like, "No." I don't know why. I said, "Take me to Arab," and I don't know why we say that. Like, I don't know. But anyway, I said, "No, take me to Arab." And he's like, well, I have to stop and get gas first. I'm like, okay. So it's just this is a funny experience. But after that, I had some hospital bills, and I wanted to be able to pay those off quicker. I'm a guy who doesn't like debt. We don't live in debt. I don't use credit cards. Just kind of a thing I just don't like doing. Part of it's, I rent. I don't even own my house. And someone's like, well, that's not a good investment. But also, like, if tomorrow God said, I want you to go here, like I'm very free. I'm very free to go wherever I need to go, which is part of what I like to be. But I didn't want that debt, that hospital debt from all that. So I asked the guys if I could come work at Papa Doobie's. I was like, sure. So after a session at Papa Doobie's, all the serving staff and the cooks and everything would hang out at a restaurant. I like to do things I've never done, and serving at a restaurant was on my checklist. Like if you want to get me to do, like if you're watching this podcast and you've hung with us this far and you want me to be involved in something you're doing, just let it be something I've never done. I'm probably going to do it. Like I just really love it.
You're going to get 14 people reach out to you.
I just like the experience. Once I've done it.
Have you ever done insurance? You ever done insurance?
I've not. I've always wanted to.
I think you'd be great at it.
But a year ago, I announced a football game, and because I'd never done that. And I didn't enjoy it at all. So this year they're like, hey, would you fill in? I'm like, nah, I can't fill in. I'd already done it. Like I didn't want to do it again. Like it lost its luster to me. But while I was there, like the wait staff would hang out and sometimes they'd have a beer. So like sometimes they'd be like, Q, you want a beer? And I'd have a beer, And in Eugene, that was like very normal. Like all the Christians like would sit around and have a glass of wine or have a beer and talk about Jesus. It was just a very normal thing. And so I would, and I remember like somebody saying, aren't you a pastor? Oh, yeah. That was and watching the wheels crank about this person's like a normal person. Because I would encourage them and show them the love of Christ. I remember I had waitresses who would be stressed out how people would treat them bad. And I just remind them who they are. And then people started coming to church. They would come to our house for a small group. They started coming to church. Now there's people who work in our kids ministry that's from that. It's just been fantastic to watch what God does when, again, you just be genuine and real and don't try to like fake anything in front of people. I did the same with coaching. This morning we had practice for flag football at 5:30 a.m. And I picked up a young lady whose family is, I think practitioners are connected to voodoo, just to be quite honest. And, but I love, like she always walks to practice. She's walked to practice for the last 2 years. And these 5:30 practices, she's asked me to come pick her up. So I'll take Journey with me and I'll go pick her up. And this morning when we got through a practice, I invited her to church and I think she's going to come. She sat down at the school today. She saw me and she sat down and talked to me. I can just feel God working on her. But it's not because I presented some kind of like holy message or try to like shame her into anything. It's because I've coached her and been a person of consistency and prayed with my players and showed them the love of Christ. I think that jobs at Papa Doobie's, that football teams, that insurance agencies are just as much church as what happens on Sunday morning, if we allow it to be. It's the places where we get to show the great love and divinity of Jesus to the people around us. Like, you're going to cross paths with so many people wherever you are. And if you'll understand the holiness of that moment, the holiness of the purpose that the people that walk in front of you have souls and that they have all this unmet potential that exists inside of them, and you may be part of the key that unlocks that. If you can understand the holiness of those moments, those holiness of those moments will blow away the best worship song we have on a Sunday morning. If you can realize it. The problem is that most times we're too busy to realize it. We have agendas and deadlines.
Yeah, and it's almost like we have to compartmentalize those things, or not that we have to, but we do. We leave church on Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning, and then it's like, well, now it's time to go. Now it's time to go work. Now it's time to go be a part of school or whatever extracurriculars that you're part of. Go watch my kids' sports game, and I think, like you said, part of that busyness is we're not consciously aware. It's not that we don't know it. We're just not consciously aware that even those things we do outside of church, the busyness of life. I made a post about it this morning. The busyness of life yields an opportunity to you that what are you busy with? Because whatever that is, whatever those things are you're doing in a day or a week, that's likely an opportunity to show somebody the light, like how you do with coaching and the different things. If we're busy with insurance, you're talking to a lot of people in a day. That's people that you wouldn't have come across if you weren't doing insurance.
Absolutely.
So that busyness, the fact that that's a part of your life and something you spend time on, that is not something that has to detract from your walk of your Christian faith, or be a distraction from that. That's something that you can leverage as an opportunity to share the gospel. Or it doesn't have to be sharing the gospel. It can just be, I'm going to be an example. I'm going to be Christ-like. And maybe that rubs off on them. Maybe they get that feeling. And then as they get to know me, they realize, wow, he goes to Life Point. He volunteers at, for the church, and he's this thing called a Christian. And, I thought Christianity was going and sitting in pews and making sure that, I dot my I's and cross my T's as far as the legalistic side of it. And I thought it was this thing that constrains me, but he looks like he's as busy as can be, but still as happy and stressless as can be. And so certainly I think those things can be an opportunity rather than something that distracts us from that.
I totally agree. It's this idea of just showing genuine love and care for people. My tech company, we hired a photographer. I called the school. I said, hey, I want your best photographer. We'll pay them, good pay. Take some pictures for a website that we're building for somebody. So I meet with this young lady Saturday. They send the best photographer. We go walk around these photos I need. I show her everything I want. We'll grab lunch, chatting, kind of going over the checklist. And in it, there's just this moment where she asked me what all I did, and it was a very genuine moment. I bring up, and in the moment I just say, do you go to church anywhere? Mm-hmm. She's like, no. I was like, you want to come Sunday? She's like, okay. So she texts me and goes, what time's church? And she's there Sunday.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I didn't go seek her out. Like, I was seeking out a photographer. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like I was like, okay, how can I now go and do a godly work today and find a person who needs Jesus? No, I was just trying to find a photographer, and then kept cognitive of the fact that this person may need something else in their life,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of times you see that that's how the majority of the time when you read in the Bible, that's how Jesus did it a lot of times. It was not, I'm going to go stand up on this high place and just talk, and then whoever shows up. God leads them there. I'm sure he could have done that, and he could have led those folks there, but I think his walk is an example of a lot of times you have to be down in the trenches and do life with people, and be an example of him while you do that. And then it's like that starts a genuine conversation of, why are you like this? Why? Where does your happiness stem from? Where does your peace stem from? A lot of times I think about Coach Burton and how, although he does do the speaking bits of things that he does, at least for me, a huge inspiration or something that really I think about often is nothing gets that guy down. Mm-hmm. Like, he's been through thing after thing, medical issue after medical issue, has almost died multiple times. And it's like, I think I saw a video the other day, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this video came from previous, but is he speaking again? Is he? I thought I saw a video where he was speaking again, and I'm like, weeks ago he could barely walk, and you just can't knock that guy down. And it's this inspiration of like, where does he get his peace from? Where does he get his positivity from? Because anything that could have gone, he's very Job of him. Everything that could have gone wrong in his life has, as far as his medical issues and stuff like that. I mean, there's not many people who deal with that much adversity, and he's still kicking and screaming for Christ. And it's like there's nothing that Satan can do to stop him.
No, and he's one of the ones I've learned from because he sees the immense value in the soul of a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think that's it. Is a lot of us, don't see the value of a soul. We things have become so transactional in our culture. So, like I think about you, and I make an assessment on how valuable you are to me based on your ability, your intellect,
Mm-hmm.
or your strength, your charisma, your financial wealth. Like those are all the things I'm trying to evaluate your value into my paradigm of life.
Mm-hmm.
But there's certain people, and I'm trying to be more of one of those people who see someone and they just see the immense value of the soul.
Mm.
And when you can do that, it allows you to not get as frustrated at people. It allows you to slow down and take time with people who don't necessarily have those value markers that you would initially look for. And and initially it's hard. I mean, I think you think, oh gosh, I need to do this. But once you start valuing souls and you do that for a little bit, there's always these like crazy aha moments where something happens and they might get changed, but really
Mm-hmm.
it's like changing you, it's shaping you, and that's why I'm really trying to do that more. Even like I want to see the value of every soul more and take the time for it when I'm around those folks, whether it be like when I'm walking or when I'm at a restaurant. I went to that. I don't know if you went to that Gather 25 stuff.
I did. I went to. We stayed for about an hour.
Did you see Francis Chan's thing?
I did. Yes.
Man, I was so convicted. Like, just the part where he talked about that he found himself trying to get gone from places with a lot of people in the room because he just was getting tired of having to have all the conversations,
Mm-hmm.
and how he was convicted. I mean, I was like, I don't want to be that way. I want to be excited, and I have been that way in my past. But again, I think we get wore down. But I want to be excited to see people, to talk to people, to have genuine conversations with people. And I want to be broken over people that are struggling. Did you know? I got to tell you this because I thought it was so crazy. Did you know when I never put this correlation? I'm studying Lamentations right now. I just finished Ecclesiastes. I'm studying Lamentations right now. And did you know that? So Jeremiah writes the book of Lamentations. And he's like really sad about all the stuff's happened to Israel. I mean, he's lamenting. That's why the book gets its title. But do you remember when Jesus asked the disciples, who do people say that I am? I didn't realize this. Did you remember that one of the things they say is some say you're Jeremiah?
No, I've never. I don't know.
I didn't either. And somebody said this. One of the guys I'm doing this Bible study with mentioned this to me. And he was like, it's because Jesus was always so sad for the condition of the people. You know, we see like where the part where it says that Jesus looked on them and had compassion on them. He said they're sheep, like lost sheep without a shepherd, and he was broken over it. There's this time he's always broken over the brokenness of people. And I thought, man, that's crazy they thought Jesus was Jeremiah because he was so sad about the condition of Israel. And I'm like, man, I want to have that same type of, like, I don't want to be able to get that young lady off my mind today until, like, I've prayed for her and prayed that God would work in her life. I've asked my Bible study group to pray for her. I ask you to pray for her. Like, I just want her to know the truth and the love of Jesus because I think she's such an incredible soul that just doesn't know him yet. Like, I want to have that same type of feeling for all the people I get to cross paths with. And I think that's the difference. When I told my wife I wanted to change church culture, I think that's the difference. Like, I don't want to like I was in a meeting when I first moved back. Oh God, I don't even know if I should tell this.
If you have to think about it, it's probably not a good idea.
I don't care.
Okay, go for it.
So I just came back from Oregon. And again, I've already said, like, there's times where I've had a beer. Like, that's the thing for me, right? Like, right now I've went on this thing where I've not been drinking beer because I've been trying to get healthier. So I haven't had probably since, like, sometime last year, like last summer or something. But And I don't look. You should not get drunk. If you're having an issue with alcoholism, you have an issue with addiction, you shouldn't do it. I've worked in recovery my whole life. Like I get that. But I was in this meeting with all these church pastors, and they were like trying to talk. Some of them, not all of them, and I won't throw anybody under the bus here, but some of them, not all. Some of them were like trying to convince all of them to sign this thing. This is when we were doing. I don't remember what it was. Going wet, Sunday sales. I don't know. One of the things.
Oh, one of those. Yeah.
You know? And they were trying to convince all of them to sign some letter to put like in the Sand Mountain Reporter and to like make this big deal about. And like we were spending so much time and effort on this. And that's the church culture that I want to get away from, where we're trying to like confine and change the rules or hold on to the rules or push agendas or pick one certain thing, you know? Like, okay, everybody look, this one sin. Let's make sure nobody's doing this one sin. Let's make sure nobody's doing this one thing. Let's make sure like everybody's like, you know, whatever. And again, maybe it's because of how I was raised, where it was like you had to use a certain version of the Bible, and you if you're a woman, you couldn't wear pants. I don't know, but like let's everybody has to do it this way. And instead of us really going and connecting with people and showing them the love of Christ, and I can't. As a pastor, I want to pastor my people in a way that they are broken hearted for the lost around them, and they are loving them. Does that mean, look, I want them to be holy too. I'm trying to be holy. I'm trying to like figure out what that looks like in my life. I want to every day try to be closer to being an example of who Jesus was, you know? And I don't, look, sin is sin. I'm not the guy writing off sin. But instead of anger, when did sin start angering us so much instead of breaking our hearts?
It's a great question.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I guess I would be curious to know that. I mean, do you see evidence of that in Scripture anywhere where sin and here's, and I'm not trying to take you off topic, but here's the as a part two to that question, when did the sin of non-believers start angering us so bad as opposed to breaking our hearts?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, I mean, if you were a non-believer and you didn't profess your faith to be in Christ, and I did, and I'm a Christian, why would it make me angry that whatever the sin may be, name it, why would it make me angry that you participate in that? You are only living the exact way you say you are.
Yeah.
You didn't profess any faith in Christ. At worst, I should feel sorry and be sad and try to show you the love of Christ in a way that makes you want to repent from that. But if you haven't committed to the same set of rules and guidelines that I have and see the value in that, then what makes me expect you to live the same way either? I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't know that I do either. I think we like to be angry. Like there's something inside of us that wants to be angry. I think somehow we've connected anger and righteousness, and this like feeling inside of us has created some kind of toxic, I don't know, like pride that exists. But Jesus, you know, he wasn't angry with unbelievers. I mean, most of the time he's angriest with church folks or the Jewish people who should have known that he was a Messiah coming. And it's probably, I mean, I think if we're doing things right, we should be more angry with each other when believers let each other down. Mm-hmm. That should create some anger.
Sure,
you know?
I could see that. I think, and I think that's kind of where I was going with that. You know, it's if you're a brother in Christ and you've given me permission to have those conversations with you, then there is an element of accountability, and I should have a conversation with you about that, about whatever it may be, you know, and maybe a little bit of anger in there of, you know, you are telling the public, you made a public profession that you're a Christian, but you live the same as everybody else. And so in a way you are tarnishing or taking away from an example of Christianity. But again, going back, somebody who hasn't done that, I find it just so comical that a lot of times people who are not Christians get a lot of hatred from Christians.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I'm playing football and you're playing soccer, and my referee runs over onto your field and throws a flag for holding. It's like, that's not the rules that I subscribe to. That's
Right.
that's not the game I'm playing.
Yeah, and I think that's the culture thing that you just want to see shift is, like let's don't get upset as a church about lost culture. Like it's folks who are lost. Let's evaluate how we're working together. But like, we shouldn't always be getting together as church leaders to try to like figure out how to stop the lost people from doing what lost people do.
Right.
Like instead, let's figure out how to show them the love of Christ, how to spread the gospel, how to serve and do things that are missional and practice, and let's do that together, because I think that'll have much more profound effect.
Absolutely.
Now, does that mean there's? Again, I don't act like I know all this, because I think there's times you have to defend things, and there's times you have to stand up for things, and I get that. If that's all we're ever getting together for,
Right.
then there's an issue with that,
Right.
I used to get really, somebody said something to me and it made a big impact. I used to get really mad. I'd go to New Orleans on these mission trips, and there'd be these people holding these signs, and they'd just be yelling at people. Like, I'll never forget. I thought it was, this is 25-year-old Q saw this for the first time. It was like a sign that said all these things that God hates on this sign. God hates rock and roll music. God hates, I don't know what all it said, Snickers. I don't know. God hates liars. It just had all these different things. And then what it says is God hates Democrats. They didn't call it Democrats, Democrats. I mean, that was what it said. I was like, my gosh. And like, I remember being so mad at those Christians, like, right, so mad at them, and being like, why aren't you showing the love of God? Why are you saying all this stuff? And then somebody said to me somewhere along the way, and again, still, I'm never going to do that. I don't think it's the best way to reach people. But they said, when you read the Bible, there are prophets, there are priests, there are shepherds. There's these different ways that people get through. And sometimes the prophet is yelling, like, God is mad. You need to stop this. And so I try not to be the guy that knows, like, everybody says you shouldn't do it this way, you should do it that way. I'm not saying those guys are absolutely 100% wrong. I'm just saying it's not how I feel called,
Right.
in spreading the gospel. I'm definitely feel like more of like a shepherd-y type person, very much less of a prophet-y type person. We talk about me and your dad are like some ways so different. Like, he's always, and it's one thing I've always respected about him, but never been able to do myself, is he's very black and white.
Very,
things,
very black and white.
And I'm not. I'm very gray, and to the extreme of it. Like, I will, like, sometimes things will spin in my mind for months, and your dad can just make a decision. Like, no, it's got to be this way. It's supposed to be this way. And sometimes I just can't get there near as quick as he can. And sometimes I get to the same place, sometimes I don't, but it's like, the world is very, very gray to me.
So this is completely sounds off topic, but you mentioned it earlier. So, the software company that you're a part of, are you co-owner in that? What's the structure there? You are a part of Data Crumbs is what it's called.
Yeah.
You do websites. You do marketing, social media marketing for folks. I know one thing you're involved in is doing the app development. There's some apps that you're working on, and you're free to talk about those as well. But what's the structure of that? Are you co-owner in that?
Yeah, I'm co-owner. It's weird. There's this guy named Jonathan who's my other owner, and I knew Jonathan from way back when. I do this whole speech on Jonathan. He'll be fine. I'll just say this. I do this whole speech on, you never know when people are going to have a profound effect in your life. And I tell the speech of the catch-up man. So I was playing. I'm a very much big nerd. You probably know this about me too. Like,
yeah.
you know, D&D comics, all that stuff. So
Hero Clicks, way back in the day. I remember that about you.
So I was playing a game called Magic the Gathering, still a pretty popular game. And I was playing with one of my roommates named Matthew Riggins, and he had this buddy named Jonathan Walls. At the time, Jonathan was, I mean, he's 3 or 4 or 5 years younger than me. And he said, hey, can you come over and play with us? I'm like, yeah. And so we're sitting around the table. You're just sitting around a card table playing this game. Magic the Gathering can last a while as you play it. And he walks over to my refrigerator, and he does something in the fridge. I'm not paying a lot of attention. He comes back, and he sits down, and he's just being quiet, like for a long period of time, which is weird for Jonathan. If you're around Jonathan, he likes to talk, especially back then. And all of a sudden, he just goes, blah, 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 and spits ketchup down the front of his mouth. It's the weirdest thing.
Like on purpose?
Yes. He just did this weird thing, man. Again, we're kids, man.
I'm sorry, Jonathan. We gave him this platform to share that. And
so in my mind, in my mind forever, like Jonathan's just been, I mean, I knew
the
him.
ketchup guy.
He's been the ketchup guy, you know? So a couple of years ago, I'm at a swim meet in Coleman, and my kids are swimming, and his kids are swimming, and we see each other in Coleman. So we hadn't seen each other in years, you know? And he comes up to me, and his words were this. He's like, hey, I've thought about trying to develop apps. I know you have a lot of good ideas. Like, what if we partner together and, you know, developing some kind of app? I said, okay. And so I went and just thought at the swim meet. And while I was there, I thought up the app that's now called Stamps. It's a recovery-based court app that we use through CR and those type of things. And I had that thought there, talked to him there before we left. We started working on that. That's led to the start of the company Data Crumbs. And again, now we work with multiple businesses. We really like, I mean, part of what we like doing, again, because I think, nowhere in my mind did I ever think I'd be part owner of a tech company.
Me either. You are not. If anybody knows Quinton, you are the least tech savvy person I've ever met. Like, I mean, I'm convinced that at your house you still have a rotary dial phone. I mean, you don't.
I'm not, man. I'm not. But I am like I am an idea guy, and I really thrive. I really love helping other people succeed. It's one of the things. It's one of the reasons I like coaching. One of my goals in coaching Flag is I would like to, in my first 10 years of coaching, scholarship 30 girls to go play college flag football. It's one of my goals I've set for
How many
myself.
are you at right now?
Just 2.
Okay.
But the snowball is just now going down the hill.
Sure. And there's one, isn't there one that got an offer or something?
Yeah, and then one of them has multiple offers.
Senior,
so they'll be
what is
3.
she? Junior?
She's a junior.
Okay.
Yeah, so
wow, junior with multiple offers already?
Yeah. She's good. She's really good. But so what we've done with Data Crumbs is we've found out ways to help people, and that's what makes it fun for me, you know. So like I was talking to a client earlier today. They're wanting to get a broader audience to sell what they're doing, and we can do that through SEOs, through the search engine optimization. We just got a really good team that works on that and trying to help get people's names out there, design stuff. We want to help the good guys. Like, we've not taken a client yet that I didn't personally like believe in. And so we want to take the good guys who are trying to do good things and help them be really good guys. And so that's part of kind of what we've based it around. And not saying that at some point we're not, but we're not pressured to. That's the thing. I'm not pressured to, like, I'm not going to sell my soul to some company I don't believe in. We want to create and push like good folks to accomplish good stuff and do it in creative methods. I mean, that's what's, our team meets each week, and we are just dreaming and come up with new ideas, and it's fun. And even in that, I mean, I've hired 2 high school seniors that are, one that wants to go into marketing, and then the lady's doing photography. And so it's like, wow, we get to give these people good jobs. We're paying them really well. Yeah. You know, and trying to help them as well. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. You're able to give, me and you talked about it the other day. It's awesome you're able to give them an opportunity to make the money that they're making while doing something that they like doing. So you're the idea guy behind Data Crumbs. You come up with ideas. You connect with people. You know a lot of people. And then Jonathan is the developer behind it. Man. Dude's a genius.
Oh my gosh.
I've seen some of the when y'all first developed Stamps, and I heard you talk about it. I heard Dad talking about it a little bit, and then I think it was at church one day. You come up to me and you said, "Hey, I want to show you our app design for Stamps, because you have a design mind, and want you to see, get your critique on it." And I haven't told you this, but in my head, I was thinking, oh my gosh, here we go. It's going to be worse than our Alpha app. Our Alpha app is the worst thing I've ever seen. And I thought it was going to be worse than that. And so you pulled it up and I looked at it and I was like genuinely impressed. I was like, this would be something that, that some Fortune 500 company would have as far as the layout of it, the way that it looks, the way it works. It's quick. It wasn't some app that somebody built off of a template. Jonathan's really, really good at building things from scratch and being able to really customize the user experience side of it to make it where it flows really well. And I've been wanting to partner with y'all for a while on something. We hadn't connected to figure out exactly what that is, but I've seen some of the websites and the apps that Jonathan's able to program and come up with, and it's impressive.
He's so good, man. It's been so cool to reconnect with him. He is a genius. The stuff he does, even he's so smart when it comes to AI. That's one of the things I'm impressed with. I've learned a ton about AI.
Yeah, you use AI a lot now.
I use it a lot, but he's creating, he calls them something. I call them AI engines. And so he's taking like menial task. Like I could probably come out here and see something you guys do. Like you put something in somewhere and you got copy over here and copy over here. He's like making all that happen in like instances. Like it's just, he's using AI to take repetitive tasks and streamline them. So like for instance, we do what's called an online audit. We did that for a lot of the businesses within the city of Albertville. It's just very simply, we go and type in your name into Google search. It brings up your Google page and we see your hours and, how your name is and your telephone number. Then we go to Yelp and make sure it's all the same. Then we go to Bing, make sure it's all the same, right? We look up all three of those. So he created. Now I just go to this, it looks like a Google sheet, right? I just go to it, type in your business name. It does all that automatically.
Really? Like AI goes and pulls all that information?
Yeah.
That's impressive. Like
AI just does it all.
Wow. And so what's the result when you get to the end of it? It just spits out.
It tells you.
It just tells you exactly what you need to know.
It tells you if everything's the same, if it's different. It tells you where the inconsistencies are. It'll highlight them in red. So like if things are not the same, it highlights them in red.
Wow.
So like you literally just type the name in.
Wow. So what are other implements? I mean, what are some other areas that y'all have implemented that or that you've seen Jonathan try that out? I mean, how do you come up with that? Like what are some of the other ways that's useful?
Yeah. So we've been trying to think of all kind of ways to like do that. So right now we're working with a rental type deal where people can fill out a form for if they were trying to rent a house. And then instead of like a person having to email every person, the person who owns the business, right, that's renting houses, anytime they have one come free, they can go in and say 2-bedroom and generates the list with the emails and the contacts.
Wow. So the landlord, the person who owns the properties, they have tenants that just come and apply for
anytime.
They'll come apply for whatever it may be, and that gets put into a database.
Yeah.
And then if it's not available, if there's nothing available at that point, they can it automatically reaches out to them and says, hey, this is available now.
And what we want to create, we're working on with the AI engine is when they put that name in, so we're creating it on their end, so they would put the name of that business in, the name of the field they're trying to fill. So like people looking for 2-bedroom homes, and then it wouldn't just generate it; it automatically send the email. Everything's done.
Really? Wow.
So that's the type of stuff the AI engines you're creating. Like, you're putting one point of contact that's triggering like 17 things to happen.
Wow. So. And see, that's the scary thing about AI too, or the exciting thing too is, I mean, how many jobs? I mean, I know it's a lot of time saved, but how many jobs are going to be replaced just by doing that? I mean, you would think like back in the day, if that was the case, you were that big, you would have, somebody that you paid $10 an hour just to reach out and try to find those tenants for those properties. And now it's just like, no, just hire Jonathan to do it for a fee, and then click a button.
We can even, this is how we've talked, we can even key it so if they reply to the email and say they already have the place, and we could put different types of wording like not interested, hey, I have a place, thanks but no thanks, whatever, all these different replies they could say to automatically take them off the list.
Really?
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that's insane.
It's like AI is reading you the emails as they return back
You've
before they send them to you.
That's insane. You've got my cogs turning now, and who knows what kind of opportunity that it creates. So how's it going? Are y'all staying busy? What are the challenges that maybe you didn't expect to see whenever you joined Datacrumbs? I mean, what?
I mean, the app thing has been it's been having to work with the state and that the government
Stamps.
Yeah, government stuff's been really slow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just, it kind of is what it is. I've kind of swallowed that bitter pill and just letting. I mean, it's making money. It is accomplishing its goal. It's just not going to the levels that I thought the state would want to push it initially. But that's fine. The rest of it's going great. Except, I mean, I hadn't really made any money off of it. I think.
But it sounds like that's not necessarily what you really got into it for. I mean, obviously that's a benefit, but it sounds like you more got into it to leverage your contacts and make something.
You know me, and so I think a lot of people are going to hear this and go, yeah, whatever. But like, I'm really not a person motivated by money.
No, I know that about you. Yeah, that's
not
100% true.
It's not. I mean, everybody has motivating factors. It's just not one of mine. I think I've made $1,000 off this business so far. Like that's it, legitimately. February, yeah. So, but I'm fine. Like it's been a lot of fun. Creating is really fun, and helping other people is super fun. We had a new client that we came on board, and we're redoing a redesign of their logo and everything. And to see them see something that they were trying to like dream up but couldn't figure out, and then fall in love with it, like that's great. Like you get to see that stuff out there. They're going to have a better business, feel better about themselves, you know? So,
yeah, and it's funny you say that. So right out of high school, I did some logo design, tried to dabble in doing graphic design stuff. I don't know that I could tell you that I made any money doing that, because every time a business would reach out, I would say, no, I'll do the logo for free. Just promise me that you're going to actually use it. Like go, you know, when you get T-shirts made, hand me a T-shirt. If you get hats made, give me a hat. And like, it made me happy to see something that I created, like up on a billboard or on a sign somewhere, or somebody wearing a shirt that had a logo that I created on it. Like there was such satisfaction in that. And I feel like that it's the same way for you, just seeing the things that you help create.
Yeah, it's just fun seeing that stuff being out there. And again, you're trying to, I mean, part of like what I want to do is create things that last beyond me, you know? And so if you can help a business, again, these are good people. Like this person we're helping recently, man, this family, they've given so much to their schools. They've given so much to their community. Like it's so great, because if they're more successful, then everybody benefits from it, you know? So like I can really buy into that, you know? If it was like some company was all about itself, that'd be something harder for me to buy into. But when we're working with these type folks, things that we believe in, I mean, it's just there's a passion that exists with it. And so like I feel that like, okay, this matters, because they're the people that are helping the world, you know? And so I want to be, I don't know, I just want to be a good steward of those type things. You know?
Where do you think that comes from, that passion that you're talking about? Where do you think that, because I see that that's a common thread with you with every venture that you're a part of, flag football, the church, the missions aspect of it, of when you went to Oregon, but then also some of the local and foreign missions that we do now. And then with stamps and with Datacrumbs, like everything that you do, it's almost like passion and drive is what you do. A sense of mission and a sense of purpose is what you do. It's just all these other things kind of fit into that bucket. Where do you think that originates from? For you, where does that come from?
Well, if you ask a therapist I talked to about 3 years ago, they'll probably say obsessive thought disorder. That's where they probably say that passion comes from.
I don't know that I'm asking the therapist, but that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
I remember, and they're right. Like I don't sleep very much. A lot of times I won't go to bed till midnight or later, and I get up at 4:30 or 5. You know, and part of it's because there's always some thought. Like I'm always obsessing over these things. I'm thinking, I'm spinning the wheel over and over and over again. Again, I live in that gray, right? So like, if I'm thinking about some company I'm working with, like I'm not a person that turns it off. I just I think on it, then think on the next thing, and it's almost like this. You ever ate that sushi that goes around that little wheel?
No, I haven't. I'm not a sushi guy.
There's this awesome restaurant I ate at one time that had this sushi that went around on this like track, and it had different colored plates. Some were pink, some were green, some were red, some were orange, and each plate was a different amount of cost. So this is $1 plate, this is a $2 plate, this is a $3 plate, $4 plate, but like the same colors came around over and over. Well, that's kind of how my mind works. Like I have these big things: flag football, Life Point Church, my family, data crumbs, and then it's like people. Like right now, this student that I really want to know Jesus. Like, and it's like issues. Like there's like 30 things, and they're just on a constant rotator in my brain. And it's like I'm sitting, and as it comes by, and maybe it comes by for like an hour, or maybe it comes by for 5 minutes. But in that time, I'm focused on it, and as it goes out, I'm looking at the next thing. And that's really how my mind works, is like I'm just always constantly working on these things, and I'm trying to like figure out how to make them better. So like that never stops. And I think that's how I'm made. I really think that's a design thing from God. And so I would say my passion and my ability is a God-given thing. I think we're all made different for different things. Like there's some people who, you ever been around those people who are just super like chill? Like I'm talking about like, that you feel like they are just smoke marijuana all the time.
Will Younghouse,
and they don't
one of those
smoke,
guys, like,
but they're just like so chill,
Yeah, like I feel like Will has always been that way.
Yeah, so like I think God made those people that way, and sometimes for people like me, like sometimes I just want to go sit with those people and be like, and breathe. And I think that we're all made unique in however we're made, and that's just the thing that the way that God's made me. It's frustrating for people around me at times. It's frustrating for my wife at times. Like there's many times I'll just pace at the house because I can't really sit still because I'm just like thinking about stuff. And so the conveyor just keeps turning. But I think that's what keeps me driven. And the other thing, and probably, and again, this is a design thing. So again, I think God's design is what gives me my passion. I thought from when I was a young man, I didn't think I'd live very long, like genuinely. Like I thought I was going to die. I had a dream the first time before I went the first mission trip to New Orleans, that a guy stabbed me in the streets and killed me. And it was a very vivid dream. And from that moment, I thought, I told my wife, we weren't married, we were dating at the time. I was like, hey, I'm probably not going to come back from this. Oh my gosh. I had this dream, I'm probably going to die. Gosh. And I didn't die. I didn't even get stabbed. Think about that. But then we got married, and I told my wife, I think I'll probably die by 25. And she's like, you're not going to die. I was like, okay, I'm just telling you. You're probably, And then I didn't. And then I told my wife, hey, I'm probably going to die before I turn 30. And then I didn't. And then I told her, and I thought this is the real one. I was like, I feel like when I turn 33, that's when Jesus died. That's when I'm going to die.
Oh my gosh.
Like I'm going to die the year Jesus died. And I didn't. And then I was like, well, it's probably before 40. And then I didn't. And now I'm 44. And I don't know. Now I'm really finally at the first point in time, I'm like, I really don't know. Maybe it's coming soon. Maybe it's not. But I've lived with this, like my time is short. Like I've had a genuine like monkey on my back. I've always thought that I would die young. And because of that, it's always pushed me to take risk I think that many people wouldn't take because I didn't think I'd be around to like wait it out. So like your dad will say sometimes the best thing I ever did was kick him off the cliff to plant Life Point. But like I just didn't think I'd be around much longer. Like I wanted to do something before I'm gone. Like I wanted to leave some kind of mark, to have done something that matters, to have said thank you to Jesus in some form or fashion before I'm dead. And I felt that. Like I feel it. It's still this tension that exists within me. Like, one time I thought I was having a heart attack. I called your dad to take me to the hospital. This is right after I got back from Oregon. I think a lot of it was
I remember this.
Decompressing from, PTSD. I don't know, from all the stuff in jail. But I started writing letters to my kids, one line at a time, each kid, because I was like, I just want to leave one last thing before I die. I keep a death notes on my phone that I write in often. Like I have songs for specific people for when I die. Like I think I'm going to die very soon. And because of that, it's kind of like, I think I live in a lot of ways. Not that I'm like Paul and the apostles or anyway, but they thought Jesus was coming back very, very soon. Mm-hmm. And so it like was this monkey on their back to push them to try to accomplish something, to like, hey, we don't have much time before this happens. And so it pushed them. And mine isn't, Jesus come back anytime. I haven't had that thought that Jesus is coming back tomorrow. Maybe I should. That's probably the more healthier way to look at it. I've just thought I'm going to die soon.
Interesting. So, and we're about to wrap up. We've been going on long enough, but I think that may be the most interesting perspective of where your passion comes from out of a lot of people that I talk to. So, the main reason that I wanted to have Q on this podcast is because, like I said, no matter what you do, you do it with a sense of drive and a sense of purpose. And it's almost like the things that would motivate the typical person to do the things you do. Take flag football, for example. It's like most people would be motivated to do that for the recognition. And then also, to help students, get scholarships and move on, whatever. And, I don't think that they don't do it because of that necessarily, but a lot of people want the recognition of that, and that's something that is in the back of their mind that drives them. With church, we talked about it starts out as something that is a God movement, and then it's like, how big can me as a human build this and be successful with this, and then with business, same thing, and so on and so forth. I wanted you on here because you approach every avenue that you take with life, you approach with a sense of purpose and a sense of drive that is not based on yourself. That's based on what value do I provide to the people in this. Now, it may be that you go wait tables because you've never done it before. But I went and ate there when you waited tables, and it's not you take an approach that's like, yeah, I'm doing this because I've never done it before. But the reason it interests me is because I think I could be really good at creating an experience for the people sitting at that table. I think I could be really good at connecting with them and make them add value to their dinner that they're having. And so you, along with some others, are a huge inspiration to the line that I use where we always add value.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what group you're a part of, no matter if it's your family, your friends, some kind of social group, a business, an organization, a team, whatever it may be, if it involves one other person, what value do you bring to the table? And then you're talking about, self-reflection on that. Are you providing more value to those around you than what you're taking from it? So if you are getting recognition for success with flag football and getting girl scholarships, great. You took some value from that team and from that organization. But look at how much more value you provided to them compared to the value that you take from it. And I think the most, I don't want to say most successful, because that's not always the case, but a lot of successful people, and definitely the most inspirational in my life, the people that I look up to, have always brought significantly more value to the table than what they take from whatever situation it is. And I think you do that extremely well. And I've been happy to have you on this podcast. Very honored that you said yes to be the first one on this. We've talked for a little while, and nobody talks about how hard it is to talk for 2 hours and run a video mixer. Man. And try to pay attention to make sure that everything's still recording. I don't know that it still is, but to try to do all that and talk for 2 hours is extremely hard. And I appreciate you being the guinea pig and the first one on here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And I wanted to, when I do this, I wanted to leave you with like one last little piece of advice,
let's hear it.
So I did seek recognition for a season of my life. And I think as young men, it's easy to do that. Young women to seek recognition. I would encourage you, the thing I've learned now at 44 is I want to seek recognition less, and I just want to seek friendships more. When you seek recognition, sometimes you do it at the risk of not having any real friends. This last week I had a guy make me a bunch of Nashville hot chicken fingers I really love that are smoked. I had another friend of mine who gave me a Marco Polo and just said, I want you to know I pray for you, and I know what you're doing. Your dad, at a time in my life when I was 420 pounds, spoke some real truth into me that I needed to get in shape and lose weight. A lot of people will clap for you, but very few people will truly love you.
Hmm.
And so at 44, I'm going to serve God. And I'm very, very thankful for the people he puts around me that are friends. When you find those guys, man, hold on to them. Your dad, Todd, Randy Brandon, Simpson, Jubal. I mean, these are men that enrich my life on the regular basis, and I'm super thankful for them.
That's good. We'll end with that. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been a pleasure. This is not going to be the last time we have you on, and maybe next time we can get into more detail on some other things. So thank you, Q, for coming on, and look forward to next time.
Thanks.